Hi, Jeff Westfall back with you again, and this is going to be Nunchaku Lesson number 2. Now, it's important to point out, many people treat these things like they're a toy, something for sort of buffing up their manhood, than as a weapon. They're weapons. We should treat them as such. So yes, there are certain twirling exercises and movements and connections that we want to learn to make, and those all have functional application. But we also want to learn how to hit with the nunchaku. Now, there are some other ways besides swinging the nunchaku that you can hit with it. And we'll cover that in a later video. But for today, I want to talk about a very important concept so that you can swing the nunchaku and reduce the chance that you're going to hurt you. Like I say to my students all the time, nothing is more embarrassing than spending time, money, energy, and effort on learning how to defend yourself and then injuring yourself while you're trying to do this. It's kind of counterproductive. So learning to do what I call momentum dampening or kinetic energy dampening techniques. Now, what that means is simply this. When I'm swinging this thing on a strike, the momentum straightens out the cord so that during part of the swing, this thing is looking like a stick. But when I bring it to a stop, this end is unconnected. Well, it's connected, but it's got a flexible connection, which means this end keeps going when I stop. If you do that the wrong way, this end can come around and hit you on the knuckles. It can hit you on the back. It can hit you a lot of places, the skull, that you don't want to get hit. So let's take a typical attack from Filipino martial arts. A number one strike. Now, a number one strike, if I hold both the staves, is a diagonal coming on this line, at least in the Inosano numbering system and in many other numbering systems. So however I've got my weapon loaded and prepared, it's a diagonal strike going from right upper corner, from my perspective, about 130, down to about 730. Now, if I swing the nunchaku the wrong way when I do this, I will hit myself in the butt or in the lower back. The secret to dampening the kinetic energy lies in what you do with this tip, the tip of this stave. So if I'm holding this stave, this tip, right where the connection of the rope is, what I want to do with that is I want to guide it. In the case of a forehand motion, like a number one, I want to guide it to touch my body in a smooth fashion. So as I swing around with my number one strike, I'm guiding this tip and touching it to myself this way to the best of my ability. This reminds me a great deal of when we're using blades, how we use our thumb as an antenna to let us know when we're touching our body, being careful with that sharp blade to not hurt ourselves. So let's say I've got the weapon cocked back over my shoulder. I turn my body for good body mechanics. I do the number one strike, and I touch the tip to myself, or I come close to touching it. Now, when I bring it back, that can be a strike too. And the way I did that without hurting myself is, again, taking this tip and touching it back to myself using as much range of motion in my shoulder joint as I can. I lost the ability to do this for about a decade when my arthritis got really bad, but now I have a plastic and titanium shoulder, and I've got range of motion back in it. So when I go back this way, I touch. There'll be a little bit of a tap of the other stave hitting your back. There's no pain there at all. It's nothing. And you'll hear a little tap hitting your lower back here. One. And then in the Inosano system, this upward diagonal is a number 12 strike. So it's 1, 12, 1, 12. That line in our system of Filipino martial arts is referred to as the sun line, going from a number 1 to a 12 and back. Now, kinetic energy dampening on the moon line, which goes this way, is a little different because it's coming from the backhand side and going down low. There's nothing for me to touch on my body. So I'm going to turn sideways here. I'm going to extend my arm back and deviate my wrist. Turn the wrist back, flipping the tip back into space that way. That gets the same effect. If I don't do that, the other stave flails around and about 1 out of 5 times will crack right into my knuckles or into my wrist. Trust me when I tell you, I know from experience. I began beating myself with these things way back in 1973, and I've been doing it off and on ever since. So anyway, to load my number 2, I may well have the free hanging stave over this shoulder with good body mechanics. I turn and I reach back. Now I'm going to reposition myself so I don't hit my wall. Boom. I'm going to turn this way and let you see it from this angle. You see how I reach and angle back? If I stop it close to my body, it's going to come back and hit me. Now there are other ways I can do this too, but that's really more horizontal. As I come down, there's not much there to hit. So it comes down and just kind of floats in the air. There'll be a little residual momentum there. Now, the number 11 line coming up this way, again, is going to touch my shoulder. So that gives you the idea about kinetic energy dampening technique. Next time, we'll talk a little bit about gripping.